All right, today we're going to be tearing into a clutch assembly on a Kawasaki Prairie 400. I'm going to show you how to do that here. We've got 8mm bolts all around the outside. We've got a clamp on the back, and we've got a brake pedal to contend with a foot pegs here. So first thing we're going to do is remove these bolts around the outside and remove this clamp. That clamp is a Phillips, a small Phillips. You want to make sure you use the right size there. And a lot of times they'll get covered in dirt and debris. Makes it a little more challenge, but most of the time they're not extremely tight. Once we get that clamp loosened up, I like to loosen up quite a bit more than you would think it needs to be, but you don't want to be held up on that clamp. Now you just kind of push that boot out of the way there. We'll go around and do the outside. You can see we've got the fenders off. We have those fenders off for other reasons than removing the clutch cover. You don't have to remove the fenders when you do this. And we'll just go around here. I like to keep these close by so I know which ones go where. They're all the same size if I remember right, but they do all have washers on them. And they're just a smaller 8mm bolt. You can see there like that. You might have to use your hands to kind of push that fender out of the way. And then one right by your swing arm pivot bolt there. And the bottom ones are generally more of a challenge. And what I do is grab a swivel and an extension like this. I'm not sure this is exactly going to do the trick, but you got to get your impact a little bit farther away than what you typically would. All different sorts of ways of doing this. And this may not work for these, for that bottom one anyways. Got that one off. We've got one more. And we might have to come in from the bottom on that one, just use a small ratchet. Now we're cut, there's a hole in the bottom of that skid plate that we're going through and loosening this one up. Most of the time once they're loosened, a lot of times you can get in there with your fingers and just remove them. All right, we've got the cover loose there. We've got this back plate off. Now the question is, can we pull this cover off without having to remove this footwell and the brake lever? We're going to find out here. Double check all of them are off. I wonder if we're missing one there because it's very tight still. It's got a rubber seal on it. That sometimes makes it a little more of a challenge. We'll grab a plastic hammer here and see if we can. There we go. Okay, we've got full of debris. This has been sitting a while. And it does seem like it's hitting on that brake lever there. We'll see if we can twist and turn it. It adds a different level of degree of difficulty when you do have to remove that brake pedal, but it looks like that's going to be the case. We've got a ways in the back for it to even start being able to come off. So we're going to stop now. We're going to go ahead and take these Phillips. There's 3 Phillips in the back, screws that look like this, and then there's 2 in the front. A lot of times what you have to do is grab an impact driver. It looks like this. Put it on your Phillips and tap on it, and that'll turn it at the same time as it kind of pounds down. So use a hammer to do that. We're going to move all of our bolts here. So once we get those done, you still don't have to take fenders off. You can actually just go ahead, move it like this, kind of pull it out of here, but your fender's still attached. Okay, your front and back fender's still attached. And you can just pull it out of the way. So potentially we could leave it like that. So our fenders are still attached here, you're just kind of pulling them out. But since our fenders are off, I'm just going to go ahead and remove that footwell completely. Now we've got a 12 millimeter bolt down here. We've already pulled that, and to just make this video a little bit quicker. Now what you do, I sprayed some WD-40 down on this. You pull the cotter pin and the bolt out of here, and then I just kind of take this, I grab behind that lever, and then I just kind of rock it up and down like that. And all you really got to do is get it out of the way a little bit to pull that cover off. Now that cover is going to pull off easier. And you know for next time that you do have to pull that off. So we've got our front, your drive clutch here. This is your driven clutch. So this is primary and secondary. Next we're going to grab this bolt. You can see it on there, loosen retaining bolt. You're going to spin that clockwise. So it's not like most of your bolts on the four-wheeler. It's a 19 millimeter. Sometimes these are extremely tight. So we've got washers on here, a handful of washers on here. I was going the wrong way. And got that off there. So there's your bolt for your primary clutch. Now, as you can tell, you won't be able to just slide this clutch off. You've got to have a puller. Message me if you need a puller. I've got them, and I can get them shipped out to you. So that's what the puller looks like there. Run that in there. It runs into the center of the clutch. And this particular one takes a 19 millimeter socket. Okay, I try to tighten up as tight as I can. And then I'll take and tap on that clutch bolt. Two reasons. Because mine's beat up enough to where my socket doesn't like to come off. I almost got my socket off there. And now what I like to do is take and hit it one time. That's why my socket doesn't come off very easily or on. Now what I'm going to do is grab a pneumatic impact. Sometimes got a little more, well, it does have a little more power. And there we go. So that pulls it off there. Now what that is doing is pushing against the crank. I'll spin this out and I'll show you what it did there. So that bolt there was pushing directly against the crank. You can see it's bent there. And that was pushing right against the crank there. It doesn't damage the threads on there. It just pushes against it, pushes that clutch off because that clutch is tapered. So now you're able to pull your belt off there. There's your clutch. You want to check your sheaves, make they're in good condition. There's some wear on these, but they're still usable. And then your driven clutch. Your driven clutch, you don't have to have any special tools to remove it. 14 millimeter bolt. Spin it the same way. That might be just as tough. Alright, that bolt is off there. We're going to keep these bolts separate from anything else because they are specialty bolts. We've got your belt there, and you can set that aside, and now this clutch is ready to come off. Now, if all you're doing is replacing the belt, what I generally do, leave this clutch attached, okay? And I take this, so this clutch is easy enough to pull off, but you won't be able to take your belt off with just removing this, okay? You've got to remove your primary clutch to do it. So if you're going to replace your belt, you got to have the tool. Now getting the belt back on, if this clutch is on there, I take my belt, slide it down all the way in that groove, take my primary clutch and tip it like this, get it started on the crank, and then obviously this clutch still attached, you take and push it on just like that, then you can run your bolt in. I suggest using a little bit of Loctite on your clutch bolts because you never want these to come out. The nice thing is about these Kawasaki Prairies is that you tighten your bolt or you loosen your bolt this way, and so the motor works against, so it doesn't loosen up that bolt like it typically would. So replacing your belt, purchase the puller. They're not very expensive. Run that in, pull this clutch off. You can leave this clutch on there. Pull that clutch off, slide your belt off just like that. Put your new one on there. Tip that put your new one on there like that. Put your primary clutch, tip your primary clutch to get it started on your crank, and then slide it in. That's gonna suck this belt into this clutch. When you pivot this, that's gonna suck this into your clutch, and that's gonna give you the room that it needs to slide that completely on. So that is the belt system and the clutch assemblies on a Kawasaki Prairie 400. As you can see, we've got some debris down there to clean up and replace those clutches, and this will go back together. Thanks for watching.